All of humanity's problems are caused by ego, which is very convenient for me because I have an ego architecture audit where I analyze your ego for money. No, but for real, all suffering that humans are causing onto each other is because of ego. The ego is a mechanism that people in spirituality don't like to talk about. People talk about consciousness, people talk about awareness, people talk about love, people talk about compassion, people talk about philosophy and about nihilism and determinism and free will and non-duality and Advaita Vedanta. We have so many branches with which we can explore ourselves, but very few talk about the ego. And I want to ask you, why do you think that is the case? Why? Why is this the thing that is just like kind of an uncomfortable topic? Well, it's because it actually relates to our suffering, or real suffering, where things are not nice to be, is where the ego is. It's where you actually hate to be yourself, where you hate to exist, and you hate existence itself, and you hate society as well. Fuck it, fuck everything. So this is what the ego actually feels like. As long as you're suffering, the ego is the worst aspect of your existence. Now, the problem with saying it this way is because it's like demonizing the ego. It's like saying that this is something you shouldn't have, which is wrong. You have an ego because you're a human. Like it's very, very, very difficult to get rid of your ego. It's such an essential structure because it relates to how you want to survive. And it means surviving socially and surviving actually as like your physical body. This doesn't mean that once you lose your ego, or if you don't have an ego, you just kind of don't want to survive anymore. Survival mechanism is also deep in the nervous system. It's not just ego. So there are a lot of misconceptions about what the ego really is, or people just pretend that you can't know, but it's not the body. The body is the body. It's not what the ego is. The ego is a creation of the mind that is projected over the body's understanding of itself. And it relates to our language, how we communicate with each other, and what do we see when we hear a certain word. And we are mostly communicating with each other's egos, because I might say a word like reality is God, like the word God, then triggers ego always. Like there's no instance where you can communicate the word God to a person and the person doesn't hear their own ego back, because there are so many attachments around that word that a lot of people don't like it. And hey, I used to be an ex-Christian, so I also loved to hate on the word God. But now I like to use it because it actually points to the underlying reality, which I might just call Brahman too, if you want to use the non-Christian tradition. But what it all comes down to, like every religion that has had a vision of God or a vision of Shiva or a vision of Jesus, like I've seen this video from this girl a few days ago who was like a hardcore Christian, and she had a vision of Jesus, and she experienced a contact with a power that was so benevolent and so loving and also so much higher than herself. What we humans do is that we get very attached to these traditional frameworks, and then we believe that we are one with the culture of whatever framework we found ourselves in, like in the example of Jesus. But I don't think it's about Jesus at all, and I also don't think it's about Shiva, and I also don't think it's about the Buddha, and I also don't think it's about Allah. When we dissolve our sense of self, what we come in contact with is a feeling that is so immense that the right sense to describe it would be divine. And this is where all sense of spirituality comes from, and all sense of existential seeking comes from. So what I'm saying is that this contact with the divine is actually contact with what happens when you move through your own ego. And that what the ego really is a byproduct of our biological evolution. You don't need to make it into something bigger than that. I want people to be able to look at the ego as any other organ in the body. It's a system that the brain or the mind creates, and it influences every decision we take. And looking into it is just in its nature not very comfortable, because the ego works on delusion, and it works on trying to convince you of whatever you perceive as real. That's why everybody lives in their own bubble and in their own belief systems. And that's why when you critique somebody's favorite movie, they actually feel hurt, because you actually attack them. And it's a creation within the mind. So all suffering is this part of the mind constricting and trying to be something else. So when you suffer, you are not just experiencing the raw pain sensations of your nervous system that is triggering your body to do something about it. No, but you're also triggering the identity response from the mind that says, I shouldn't be this. I hate this. Why do I exist? These questions are the pointer to what is actually causing suffering. It's a multiplication that the mind does towards its own dislike for itself. It's like whatever the ego tries to do, it's like it's saying what it is not. And by doing that, it dislikes everything else. It goes as far as being at a job or like a work you do in your life that you don't like and wanting to be somewhere else. But you actually can be present in something you dislike and be okay with it. Which sounds very much like complacency for the ego. So if your bells already ring and say, this doesn't sound good, I need to be moving. Well, it is this feeling that it wouldn't be good enough. And yeah, it gets complicated here, right? Because I can, of course, reel it back there and say, no, but it's not that you shouldn't listen to your ego. It's not the point at all. You kind of have to. You cannot ignore it and then pretend it's not there, because that's exactly the problem. The moment you deny yourself who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it, this is where the ego gets its grip on you. So what you have to constantly do is to look beneath what you say are your intentions. Like you need to even question what you feel like comes naturally from you. Because oftentimes what comes naturally is actually an impulse born out of suffering. You feel something that you don't like, and from the instinct of your soul, you reject it and want to be something else. You dislike something and want to be something else. And in this polarity, you create a lot of movement or also a lot of suffering. And then on the other side, well-being and bliss would then just be the coherence of this mechanism. And if you dissolve your sense of ego, first it's just this reactiveness gets lower, and you then start to understand how your entire sense of identity, like your entire world model, is dependent on this ego. And I would say the more spiritually advanced you are, the better you can look at your own ego without an odd interpersonal relationship with it. Like you can look at it honestly for how it is right now. And you might also say how developed it is right now, how much it is suffering, how much it wants its ex back, or to be rich, or be super popular. All of these mundane or superficial things are quite common for almost everybody to some degree. The more you see through the ego, well, the more it becomes uncommon to experience a lot of these, kind of superficial things, which is where this idea comes that if you're into spirituality, you're deep, because you're really deep, but it's like you're deep in your own mind. You're just understanding the mind on another layer. So people don't like to frame things this way, because I'm kind of stripping all the spirituality away, all of the fun of seeing Jesus and seeing Vishnu or Buddha or whatever other saint, The fun of it comes from feeling it's something other than you and it's above you. And also having the ability to make this ego separation from something. Now it's not suffering, but it's something that's higher than you, or it's an angel, or something he is so pure and loving, like I am so unworthy of it. So even in this, like it's kind of like an ascension process from the ego looking at something higher than itself. But even from there, what is actually going on is that you're separating yourself from reality. Like, oh, I am not worthy of whatever bliss or love I'm experiencing right now. So again, a separation, but this time you're scared of love. And all what my channel is really doing, and all of my ego architectures are really doing, and all of what my Substack articles are really doing, is trying to find the right words that gets your ego triggered in a way that helps you see yourself better. So in a way, I am trying to provoke people, and I'm trying to do so in a way that gets me also understood. And I find it is very weird to do in realms of, spirituality and philosophy, because, the ego is so much involved. So I feel like my most authentic self is actually quite rude and provocative. And I'm still figuring out how to balance that.